Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics and Right. I'm Egberto, Willies, your host. Thank you so kind for being a part of the show. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And I am so darn behind. It ain't funny. As that music is playing, I'm processing the last piece of a video. I'm trying to get the other stuff going. I need about 4 more hands and about 20 more hours in the day. Because, man, with all the stuff that's happening, there's just not enough times. There's just not enough time. I hope it kind of cools down right after the election. I hope it's a quick election, a landslide, so that we don't have a whole lot of this stuff to do. But I can tell you, folks, I'm working overtime. Used to be 16 hours a day. Now it's just 3 hours of sleep a day, my dear brothers and sisters. But I'm not complaining because this is what it's all about. This is how we are going to win it. Putting in the performance, we're not going to do it forever, but we're getting the performance in. We're getting the performance in. As I speak here, I'm trying to queue up all the videos that were, well, two good videos that I have. One is an interview with, I tell you what, I am going to start out with the interview with our candidate here, a local candidate that I want to get out there. And so I think that's where I'm going to start today. But before I get to that interview, I have to get to you guys. But let me cue these things up real quickly first before I get started. And there is, let's see, Chuck Cruz. All right. And I move Chuck Cruz over to this side. All right. So anyway, welcome aboard. AVQ is in the house. Welcome aboard. Yvette A from let me back up. AVQ from Brooklyn, New York is in the house. We also have Yvette Avery Herod from Atlanta, Georgia. We also have Eric Hayes from Kingwood, Atascocita. Bridge MCP from Binghamton, New York, upstate New York. We have Deb Denny. Deb Denny is from Oregon, if I remember correctly. Correct me if I'm wrong. And anybody else? So Melanie Keelan from Barcelona, Spain. And we have Matilda Beatty. It's not just small business that Trader put in, isn't it? It's any business at all. Melanie Keelan, greetings. Hey, I have the wrong title that I'm about to correct right now, or in a little bit, I will correct the title. It's not even local Texas candidate and MAGA. Let me go ahead and see if I can fix some of those titles for the show, because again, like I said, I am under the gun, but we make sure and we keep it going. All right, title on YouTube changed, I think. The title on YouTube has changed. I think I got it changed in time. Let's see if it's changed. Para ver. Bear with me, folks. I want to make sure I get this right. All right. Yep, the title on YouTube has changed. It's a little bit more difficult to change it on Facebook. I'll do that when I start the other program. All right, let's see what else are we saying here. Bridge MCP says, Egberto Willies, an initiative called Progress 2028 that purports to be Kamala Harris's liberal counter to the Conservative Heritage Foundation's Project 2025 is actually run by a dark money network supporting former President Donald Trump, pro-Trump dark money network tied to Elon Musk behind fake pro-Harris campaign scheme. The con men never stop. The only way they win is by lying and cheating. Yep, and we need to make sure that that is come out. So thank you for putting that out, Bridge MCP. That is important for us to put out there, that there's no Project 2028 for that Kamala Harris has put out. Debbie, you are never unforgettable, but where are you from? I don't see that you have. Did I get it right? Did I get that right, Deb Denny? Did I get it right? Carl Cox is in the house from Riverdale, Georgia. Carl Cox, know that I can never remember Riverdale, Georgia either, right? I can never remember Riverdale, Georgia either. Okay, what else have we got here? Matilda. Trump's shtick is to slap his name on a product and expect the value to go up. Of course, that doesn't work because he has no value. He has no value. All right. I want to start, folks, with an interview that I did today, or actually a couple of days ago, with somebody that's running in a district, a very red district, House district in Texas, that is not likely to win but that we need to start growing into winning. So I want you to listen to how this guy intends to bring a red district into the fold, and then we'll take it on the other side. So bear with me as I play Brother Chuck Cruz, who is running in this election. Here we go. Welcome to another edition of Politics Done Right. My name is Egberto, Willies, your host. Today we are honored to have Chuck Cruz. Chuck Cruz is a retired chemical engineer, and he is now running for state representative for District 128. Welcome to Politics Done Right, Chuck. How are you doing today?
Thanks for having me on.
Well, the first thing that caught my eye is that you were actually endorsed by the Houston Chronicle over the seasoned, I think, 8-year representative of that particular district, Briscoe Cain. And they were kind in the way they endorsed you, or I should say in the way they put down Briscoe and the real reasons why you are there. So let's go ahead, first of all, and tell me why you decided to run for this office.
Because somebody had to. So this is actually my second attempt at this position, my second run for office. And my first run was done largely the same way the second one was. I was volunteering with the Harris County Democratic Party in December of 2021 when the filing period for the 22 season was drawing to a close, because I was hoping to meet the person who was going to file to run against Briscoe Cain and shake their hand. Unfortunately, with just 2 or 3 days, I forget, left to go before the deadline for filing closed, nobody had shown up. Nobody had stood up and said, I'm going to run. Meanwhile, in the 2020 campaign, there were two. It was actually a contested primary, which was remarkable because this seat had not been contested by a Democrat for nearly 2 decades.
Wow. So
Republicans and libertarians, occasionally a libertarian would show up on the ballot, but Republicans had basically free reign to do whatever they wanted as a representative for this area for nearly 2 decades. 2020 cycle, there were two, both of them lost. And in 2021, I wanted to shake the hand of whoever was going to run against Briscoe. 3 days before the deadline, nobody had shown up. And one of the HCDP staffers turned to me and said, why not you? And I said, you know what? Why not? So I ran in the 22 cycle. I lost in the 22 cycle. And I'm going to put my cards on the table. There were 3 seats in Harris County for state rep that were unchallenged by Democrats. So who knows what that vote total would have been. But of the challenge seats that were held by Republicans, I performed the worst. Again, this is an incredibly red district, and it is tough to work out here, but it needs to be done so that people have a legitimate choice.
Now, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So
go ahead.
I lost by about 40 points, which is a very, very large deficit. And in 22, it was a very sobering wake up call to say, all right, there's a lot of ground to be gained here. And so in 24, my strategy is considerably different. I am wanting to build the infrastructure that somebody will win in eventually. And I have no illusions. Making up a 40-point deficit is nearly impossible. I'm not going to say actually impossible, but for all intents and purposes, pretty much. It's just too much ground to gain in one cycle. So my goal for this cycle is to build the party infrastructure that will be used for a successful campaign in the future. From a 40-point loss, I would like to get that down to a 30-point loss, 25-point loss, 20-point loss, but somehow gaining ground, building the infrastructure, forming new local Democratic clubs, training and recruiting and training, I should say, new Democratic activists to carry on the fight, because nobody can do it alone. It just cannot be done.
Well, the one thing about it is, given the review that you got from the Houston Chronicle and the penetration that the Houston Chronicle has in that area, I think it could be more positive than you think. if you actually go out there and just go to the place and not necessarily campaign as a Democrat, but campaign as somebody in the community who's out there to serve them. Because as it turns out, I hadn't followed Briscoe Cain at all. And in fact, I'm going to talk to Briscoe Cain, or I'll try to talk to Briscoe Cain, but I haven't spoken to Briscoe Cain at all. And after seeing his review, I want to know, why is he even running for the position? I'll be blunt. He's unqualified for the position.
I can't tell you why he is running. I can tell you why I believe he is running for the position, because I don't know what's inside his mind. I believe that he is in office to serve the Christian nationalist agenda. He is highly supported and funded by corporate folks, not widely supported by the community from a funding and donation standpoint. He is essentially a puppet for folks that want to make Texas a place that is good for rich people and screw everybody else. He has done nothing to serve the public. He has done nothing to serve the district that he represents. His only agenda is pushing Christian nationalism. And I very much encourage you to reach out to Briscoe and ask him to be on your show. I highly doubt that he's going to accept. He, in 22, refused to meet with the Houston Chronicle for their endorsement, didn't speak to him at all. He has consistently refused to respond to League of Women Voters requests for their voters guide. No response received several times. And in this cycle, again, he did not respond to the Houston Chronicle request for an interview. And most notably, both in 2022 and in 2024, he brags about not having received the endorsement because he is that much of a contrarian. He is now finishing up his fourth term in office. Of those 4 terms in office, Texas Monthly Magazine has twice said that he is the worst member of the Texas legislature. Every election cycle, the Texas Monthly folks watch the Texas legislature, see what's going on, and they publish a list, the best and the worst of the Texas legislature. They pick from the Republicans, they pick from the Democrats, they pick from the House, they pick from the Senate. It is a across the board, who's good, who's bad, and who's ugly. But Briscoe Cain has topped the list of the worst representatives, the worst members. So 150 state reps, 31 state senators. Of that 181 person field, he has topped the list of the worst members of the Texas legislature twice.
I think
he's proud of it, brags about it. Just embarrassing.
And I think that needs to be publicized. And I think not only that, but I think, again, meeting with your folks out there in the right areas, brother, it's 2.5 weeks to the election. You still have time to make the case, and you never know. I can tell you about elections in the Washington state that completely people just happen to wake up. So give me a closing statement.
Absolutely. So I am out there almost every single day. I'm phone banking, texting, knocking doors with folks. I'm proud to be one of the founding members of the freshly formed Democrats of LaPorte Club. I will be meeting with the Deer Park Teachers Association later this afternoon, because one of the biggest things that I'm running on is that Briscoe is strongly supporting the school voucher scam, which will destroy public education in the state of Texas. He is a big proponent, broadly as I can, that public education is on the line.
Chuck Cruz, the future state representative, 128, District 128. Thank you so kindly for having spoken to me here at Politics Done Right.
Egberto, it is a pleasure as always.
Folks, one of the reasons I wanted to play this is something that we have to do in every federal congressional district, federal senatorial. Well, there's no senatorial districts. Every Senate takes the whole state. But in state senatorial districts, state House districts, except for I think Montana is the one that has a unicameral legislature, which means there are not 2 bodies. Okay. We need to contest in every single district. And we did that here in Harris County and the surrounding counties where our districts split off. There should be a progressive run-in in every single district in your state. both federal districts and state districts. That is how you start to pull it all together. Yeah, Chuck Cruz is a retired chemical engineer. And and he's really putting his actions where it is. He's out there at all meetings. He's out there doing the job. He's out there recruiting. He's out there teaching. This guy Briscoe Cain is a joke. He is in a district with a lot of refineries, and he does nothing for the people in his district. He just exists because he's MAGA, and they are going to vote MAGA. That's all he does. But Chuck Cruz is engaging the MAGA folks. Chuck Cruz is engaging the entire community to make sure that they take a look at things in a different manner. Let's see. Melanie Keelan says, I hope everyone is surviving. We are surviving, Melanie. We are surviving. Likewise, we have Para ver, Carl Cox says, the T in Trump stands for Trump is trash. Carl Cox from Riverdale, Georgia. Come on. We're a little bit nicer here, even though he's not nice, right? All right. Michael Radin says, Matilda, Trump's shtick is to slap his name on a product and expect the value to go up. Of course, that doesn't work, especially when you have no real value in yourself. Let's see. Eric Hayes says, fundamental difference is Red wants to give people purpose via jobs, economy, and blue government assistance. Okay. I don't know how many times I need to tell you that, but because you put that statement there, I feel compelled to say that the Reds are all talk and the Blues are all actions. And that's why it takes the blue states to fund the red states. That's why the blue states have the more educated than the red states, not because of the people, but because of the politicians who don't invest in their people. So that's why when you see all these big companies move to Texas or lower tax states, they bring their engineers that were educated elsewhere, of course, in the University of Texas as well, which is the best university in Texas. But the point is, the Republican politicians do a lot of talking, and the blue politicians, the Democratic politicians, the progressive politicians do a lot of acting. And that's why don't talk to me, show me. And what the red states show is that their water systems are in disrepair vis-a-vis Jacksonville, Mississippi, that their educational system, except for the elite in their states, is in disrepair. And that simply they don't have enough of a tax base to take care of their own people. And therefore, the blue states have to pony up to take care of the people because we do what Jesus said to do. Unlike the evangelicals in the red states, we abide by the good word. We care about our neighbors. We care about our fellow man. We care about our fellow woman. Unlike in the red states who say women go die, who say even as the federal government is willing to pay 90% of health care for your indigent, even as they're willing to do that, the red states say, no, let them die. So the blue states, who the red state politicians like to disregard or consider them heathens or otherwise, are the ones that are actually following the word of Jesus Christ Almighty. What a thing. I was told not to use the word Pharisees to describe those who would come out and talk and talk and talk and not act, because they told me I misrepresent. By using that example, I misrepresent. So I have a job out there for my brothers and sisters. I learned back in Panama as a Christian, before I became a humanist, that the Pharisees wanted everybody to see them praying, and they did a lot of talking, but there was not a lot of action behind it. I want somebody to tell me how should I properly use that Bible context that Jesus spoke against to describe our current crop of evangelicals, evangelical leadership who's leading their flock astray. I'm not talking about the evangelical people, because I understand it's the evangelical leadership like Billy Graham's son and these other heathens that are leading their flock astray. So if anybody can teach me, inform me, which better thing to use, if you will, within the Bible, I'm all ears. All right. Paul Fleming says U.S. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg says federal government will provide Tennessee with $32 million of emergency highway aid to fast-track road repairs for Helen. Yep, they're in bad shape. Paul Fleming also said Elon Musk is the richest man in the world, supposedly, right? So why is he making hurricane victims pay over $300 for hardware to use his service, which was only free for 1 month until the backlash? How much money has he donated to relief efforts? A person with his money and government connections could send a truck and a plane loads of supply and foods. That's not how they work. Like I tell you, billionaires are billionaires because they are selfish. Billionaires are billionaires because they don't care about humanity in the aggregate. And I say that absolutely. Even the good billionaires, my friend, you can actually, look, somebody that has $100 billion could say, you know what? I'm going to take $1 billion and do this job here. Sometimes our own government doesn't have a problem raising $1 billion. They could. But you become a billionaire because you're a hoarder and you take advantage of the other person's intellect, the other person's worth, the other person's work. All right? And any billionaire that wants to discuss that with me, be my guest. I'll be happy to do so with you. Let's see. Bridge MCP said Harris skips Al Smith saying she will go when she's president. Right now, she's busy campaigning. Meanwhile, Rump is booed. LOL. Not only that, you hear the new thing? Trump is actually tired. He can't handle campaigning anymore. He can't handle the interviews anymore. He can't keep his thought process straight. He's just trying to hang on to win the election so that he can pass the baton after he gets out of jail, if he was ever to win. After he gets out of killing these different things, pass the baton to his vice president, who will pardon him. It ain't gonna happen, Trump. Kamala is going to beat you completely. That's it. I'm sorry, Senor Trump. All right. Michael Rudden said, not just education. Blue states have better health care, better environmental protection, better benefits across the board. And you wonder why Reds keep talking economy. That's more to the economy than corporate profiteering. Absolutely. Egberto, why did you move to Kingwood Schools? Why not HISD? I came to Kingwood Schools for my daughter because Kingwood and Katy were rated the 2 top districts in the state. Now, I could have said I could stay in HISD, move to an expensive part of Houston that actually have some of the better specific high schools in Houston. But when it comes to performance, actually, Kingwood, the entire system was better as far as educationally speaking than the entire HISD system. And that's the reason I moved to Kingwood. And, that's the reason why. All right, let's see what else we got here. He did get booed. All right, Super John 1224 says, Elon has been giving Starlink away for free to hurricane victims. As they said, it was 1 month, brother. Again, the guy's a crook. And by the way, his billion didn't come from him. His billion came from all the investments all of us made in the space program, including I worked for the space station project. All right, let's remember that. All right, let me bring in my sister, Peggy Lopez. Peggy Lopez, is my honor to speak to you, sis. Talk to me.
Thank you, Egberto. I was going to try to get a hold of you at 4 o'clock this morning,
Uh-huh.
But that's way too early for me to talk because you guys had invited me to come back and talk again about the patriarchy.
Yeah.
And I just came in and you're here, so I thought I would call you right now and give you another little piece because I think people may not understand me when I just make little statements about it. And I need to begin with the basic, simplest form of the patriarchy is the family with a husband, a wife, and children. The husband owns the wife and the children. Over 2,000 years ago, that patriarchal husband could kill the wife, and it was meaningless. Then from there, it went to common law, like in England, where the rule of thumb, you could beat your wife, but not with a stick any thicker than your thumb. And it wasn't until 1990, I don't know if it was 4 or 6, that it actually became a real crime for a husband to harm his wife, where it was codified in the Violence Against Women's Act. And that was about domestic violence. So even in this country, they brought the rule of thumb with them from England, and it wasn't until 1994 that women were actually legally protected from their husbands beating them or harming them. And so that kind of a historical reality is built into who the structures that we live in every day. Now, the man who is the husband in the family is not the ultimate patriarch, because the man goes to work, works for a man who is his patriarch. And there's a real class structure within the patriarchy. And then whoever owns the business is actually the patriarch over the business. It has minor managers and bosses, but they're just minor patriarchs, and they're not the ultimate until they go home to their family where they are the ultimate. And when I'm analyzing what's going on in the world today, this has been my basis of analysis since I was a teenager.
Let me tell you something, and I read somewhere else, and I can't remember where, that right now we are having that big fight, and the patriarchy is fighting like hell to try to survive what has been an arcane system for a long time. And you brought it back to America here. I think it wasn't until the 60s that women could even open a bank account on their own. Is that right? Right here in the United States.
I think it was in the 70s.
In the 70s. Okay. So this was codified for a long time that we had something that needs to break. And I tell you what, we hope that Kamala Harris can break it, because right now, Donald Trump, the reason he has Latino male, so far, a Latino male support and a black male support and other male support, is he's playing on that game for that small faction of all these different groups that do that believe in that ridiculous.
It's not ridiculous. It's still with us. It's in the hierarchy of our businesses. There was a woman who ran for president, Sonia Johnson. She wrote a book called From Housewife to Heretic. If you want to figure out how to break out of the patriarchal bonds that holds every single one of us, it's a good book to read, because she talks about having come up against it. She lost her kids, she lost her family, she lost her community, she lost her home. She lost everything because she spoke out as a perfectly conditioned patriarchal wife. She spoke out in favor of the ERA. They excommunicated her from her life. And she wrote about what that was like and every piece of her life that fell apart because of that. When I hear people who were in the Paradise Fire up here and they lost their homes and their pets and their historical mementos of their life, they sound a lot like that. And I think the reason that they've started with getting rid of Roe is because they can't figure out how to directly go back and make women their property. So what they've done is they've turned the women's bodies into the property of the state. And if Trump wins, then he will figure out a way to make it women's bodies the property of the United States. And from there, it's just this horrific stuff that I'm looking at. And simultaneous to that, Kamala Harris is a woman who has broken almost every bond of the patriarchy that has been tried to be put upon her. And in that process, she knows how to stand toe-to-toe with the patriarch and say, you are nothing but my equal. And they don't know how to deal with that.
And you know what? And I think like I mentioned on KPFT on the earlier show, I think it was a couple days ago when I did a piece on white women, because right now the only thing that keeping the patriarchy politically alive is in fact white women, right? And we have the woman from
it has a.
Go ahead, please. Continue.
What keeps it alive? You know how a house has bones, and our social structure has bones. Every business that you go to has a similar bones, has a similar hierarchy, and that is the bones of patriarchy. We have stopped completely fighting the patriarchy. Back in the 70s, there was like a conscious decision. Sonia Johnson put forth this theory that as long as we fight against the patriarchy, we are going to lose and they're going to get stronger. What we need to do is quit fighting the patriarchy. We need to come together and fight racism and sexism and homophobia and every single one of those tenets of the patriarchy, because the patriarchy can't survive without having an enemy. And so instead of directly fighting with that's a kind of an archaic term today, the patriarchy. And yet they still have the controlling interest. However, what I watched in the Black Lives Matters, I mean, I'm old and crippled, and I have to watch everything on the screen. I can't go out and do it anymore. But what I saw was in the 60s and 70s, the women's movement was in its own silo. The Black civil rights were in their silo. The anti-war was in their silo. The farmers, field workers were in their silo. Everybody had their own silo. But what I watched in the Black Lives Matter is through the decades, those silo walls have gone, and we just intermingle with each other all over the place. And there is no way for the patriarchy to fight against that. And they are accustomed to us coming to them and calling them names from way back when. And when we stopped doing it, they thought, oh, we won. And what we did was we went away from their fort and gathered together and started making this new way of being in the world, which is way more humane than it's ever been before. And I am so happy to see that. And I see it in your show. I see it in the people that come to your show. I see that formation of the human bonds rather than the old archaic outside of the personhood structure for how we're supposed to relate. But I see people relating human to human to human. And I really enjoy that.
I love what you had to say, Peggy. And let me tell you, elevate that one other step. You know, I go to the Netroots Nation and some other progressive conferences every year, and it's interesting that you see that conglomeration of these different groups that you're talking about, and that's exactly many of our outtakes and many of our plenaries. That is something that's been spoken about. Now, I didn't when I spoke about white women, the idea wasn't disparaging. The idea was that in order for us to get the numbers to not allow a Donald Trump in there, that's the last bastion that we need to crack as far as women who vote Republican. I know it's a Republican and Democratic patriarchy as well. I mean, let's not fool ourselves. Patriarchy exists. Both sides.
Yeah.
But having to get her there, the woman who will sit on top of, to put it bluntly, sort of on top of the patriarchy, right?
Correct. What she will do is she will crack the patriarchy open in a way that it's never been cracked open before.
Exactly.
And I'm really delighted that there is a biracial woman up against Donald Trump, who ultimately was the patriarch in his family, was the patriarch in his business, and thinks he can be patriarch of the country. I think she's going to win.
Oh, I know she's going to win. And let me tell you, Peggy, I want to play another video, but I want to say that thank you so kindly for elevating this discussion, because this is what a lot of us needed to hear. And I want everybody in the chat to give a big clap to Sister Peggy Lopez for that commentary that we just heard. Thank you, sis.
However, I am hedging my bets, and I'm leaving for Mexico on the 1st. I already voted yesterday, and just in case I'm wrong.
Well, Peggy,
I don't want
you're
to be
not
here
wrong.
If he's president again.
Peggy, you're not wrong, but we'll talk. We'll talk.
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe if you have internet in Mexico, we can bring you into the show directly from Mexico. All right.
Okay. We'll see what we can work up.
Have a good one now. Peace.
Thank you. You too.
Was that great or was that great? I just enjoyed that little discussion that I'm going to turn it. There are two blogs I need to make. One with Brother Patrick, and the other one with Sister Lopez. Patrick MAGA? Why am I forgetting your name? Magner, Patrick Magner, and the other one with Debbie Lopez. I think Patrick was 2 days ago and Deb is today. I'm going to have to remember where to cut it from. Anyway, folks, let's see. Breach has something she wants me to put on the screen. The screen is kind of blinking, so I have to use a screen cut instead. All right, we have Protestants. I don't think I can get it any bigger than that. Let me see if I can get it a little bit bigger, Breach. There we go. I think that's better. Protestants, Baptists, slavery, child. Oh my God! I see what you're doing there. You're overlapping evangelicals with all the decadence that's occurring in our country. That's a good one, Breach. Here we go with Brother Patrick. All right, let me see. Patrick Magner. All right, Patrick, how you doing, my brother?
Doing good. Wanted to tell Peggy thank you. She's very talented at logically putting things in order.
Oh yes.
I wanted to back her up a little bit. 60 years ago, just 60 years ago in this country, women could be forcefully placed into mental institutions because they weren't sexually available to their husbands. That was just 60 years ago. At the same time, this country was hanging black people still for no other reason except for their color. In 60 years, that's how far we've gone. 40 years ago, they started fighting that again. We had 20 years of trying to get away from that. In the last 40, in 200 years before that, it's been a fight just for basic rights for people that are completely fine. I mean, there's no reason to be doing this to anybody because sex, color, anything like that. It's a ploy. It's a forceful ploy to keep power, and the only way to keep that power, to keep that structure that Peggy's talking about, is through force, because it doesn't work through negotiation. It doesn't work through any other vessel. It has to be forced upon people. People have to be punished.
You got it. Look, Patrick, thank you much. I have an important video that I got to play, and we're at 44. So, look, thank you for backing Peggy up. Let's go ahead.
Well, one other thing. Trump was 20 years old when women were treated this way and black men were treated this way. That's what he grew up seeing, and that's what he thinks works. I'll leave it at that.
And that's who he is. Thank you, brother. Peace. All right, folks, I have one more video. Let me get rid of the screen because it's on the cut screen here, and that takes a lot of CPU. There we go. All right, let's go ahead and do my last video. This one you're going to like. Maybe I'll get to it. You know, a former NBC chief marketer now regrets that they created a false story of Trump being a successful businessman. In other words, the persona that they created of Trump is something that was manufactured for a show. And because America saw that manufactured show, you had a lot of people, and you have a lot of people thinking that, well, Donald Trump is a good businessman and he should run the country like a business. And that's why we want to have him elected. The truth of the matter is, it is silly to want to run the country like a business. In fact, running the country like a business is anathema to a successful government, because a successful government is one that is there as a backstop, not one that is a profit driven, etc. But then again, neither was Donald Trump's businesses, as every single one of them have been in some state of failure. In fact, 6 bankruptcies. And he said, I tell you what, listen to what this NBC chief had to say, and then we'll take it on the other side.
A former NBC marketing executive who promoted The Apprentice is apologizing to the American people for helping to, quote, create a monster. Writing for U.S. News and World Report, John D. Miller says the story he and his team created for Donald Trump was at best a, quote, substantial exaggeration, at worst a false narrative, by making him seem more successful than he was. Joining us now, former NBC marketing executive John D. Miller, both NBC, by the way, News and MSNBC are part of Comcast, NBC Universal. All right. I'm so excited to talk to you.
Okay, good.
I tried to talk to you and others during the 2016 campaign about the myth of Donald Trump from The Apprentice, because what I would hear when I was talking to voters was that they were voting for him because they thought he would do a good job because he was a good businessman.
Right.
And I said, how do you know he's a good businessman? Because I saw him on The Apprentice.
Yeah.
I heard this from multiple people.
Yeah, we were very good at what we did in marketing shows. And in this particular case, creating the false narrative for Donald Trump as a big businessman was very important. The thing was that people had to, the conceit of this show was you didn't win a date, you won a career. And so people had to come in, and for $250,000, if they won, they would get a chance to spend a year with a CEO that would be the person, the apprentice by their sides, learning everything they could.
They get mentored.
Yes, correct. Well, that was pretty much a false narrative as well. But the big thing is that we had to make Donald Trump look like he was a big executive. And before that, he was largely popular in New York. He'd been bankrupt at least 4 times from various businesses, I think 2 more after the show went on the air. And so clearly we had to make something bigger than it was. As I sort of say in promotion, we're making mountains out of molehills every day.
So he wasn't a good business executive.
Well, if someone had been bankrupt, one of his businesses 4 different times, and then 6 in total, I'm not so sure. And what the reason I came forward to a large degree was there's so many people that say that the economy is the biggest thing in this election. And just as you related to us just a minute ago, if people think that he is the person for that because he was a great businessman, that is a false narrative. We did it for the show, but it became very dangerous now for the country.
So there are Americans now who will say, I don't need to look to The Apprentice. I can look to the 4 years while he was in office. And I thought he did a good job while he was in office. What do you say to them about maybe the foundational idea they have of Donald Trump in their mind?
Well, there were some sophisticated things that went on in the economy. First of all, as Obama basically said, he left Trump with a very good economy. And along the way, he didn't really do very much. And so he sort of got out of the way of it. So what I would say is that he was lucky along the way until he hit a stumbling block, which was the pandemic, in which case he very much mishandled along that way. Now, he did give a tax cut to a lot of different people, but not many people in a certain economic spectrum took great advantage of that. And so what I would say to them is maybe he helped you a little bit, but what I would say is the last 4 years have actually also been very strong, with the stock market hitting new highs and inflation now low, unemployment also low. And so I think that he did a very good job of selling himself, which is what he always did.
Economists will argue that presidents don't really have that much sway over the economy because the economy moves so slowly, and a decision that you make during your presidency doesn't really come to fruition, so the results of it until many years down the line. So would you be arguing that the Donald Trump that you saw during COVID was more the Donald Trump as the executive he was before he was elected into office.
He rarely was, in my knowledge of him and working with him and talking to him, because I knew him for a number of years in this particular period of time, is that he was very good at selling himself. He was very good at telling what he did without actually doing it. And to a large degree, he followed along what maybe he learned what we did in the show, because we created the persona for him and he went along with it. And that was very much advantage to him. But to a large degree, not true.
We are less than 3 weeks before the next election. Why are you writing this now? Yeah. Why now? Why not 4 years ago?
Well,
8 years ago.
Up until 22, when I retired, I was a senior executive reporting to the CEO of NBC Universal and Comcast. And it was probably inappropriate for me as an executive at the time. I wasn't in your position as a news reporter. I was an executive, and the company had certain policies about that sort of thing. So I probably wouldn't have done it at that point. And after that, I started writing a book, and that's one of the chapters. And I realized I am not going to get this published before the election goes out. I had to get it out beforehand. And as I was thinking about what can I do, and I said, well, I have to start somewhere. So I did a Facebook post that turned, and I got a lot of response on that. I said, well, let me do a LinkedIn post because I have a lot of followers there. A lot more awareness. And then a U.S. News Report called me and said, would you do an op-ed? And I said, well, I have one ready. So I sent it to them, and within 3 hours, it was released. And since then, I've been nonstop talking, and it's nice talking to you.
Are you going to be voting for Kamala Harris?
Absolutely.
Why?
Well, first of all, I never voted for Trump at the first point. And after meeting him and after working with him, that was a non-starter. Because basically, it's a phony. He does certain things, but actually governing is not one of them.
What would you say to somebody who was considering whether they wanted to vote for her or for him, somebody who still might be on the fence?
I would say if you have a disagreement with the policy, it does not matter. He is a character that's non-starter. And he lies regularly. He will say the same thing over and over again, even though it's not true. I make the little statement, and this is so small by comparison to like the stealing of the election and the pandemic and everything else that he says he did well. To me, he would call up and say, and I was like the fifth call of the day, how do we do, John? And I knew he'd seen the ratings. I had the ratings right in front of me. And I said, well, we did very well. It's the #1 show on television. In truth.
Always cared about numbers.
Absolutely.
Now, again, this NBC chief who created this persona of a Trump being a successful businessman, who made people believe that he was a fairly trustworthy guy, made sure to not have ever voted for this guy, Donald Trump. But above and beyond that, he felt a responsibility. He was writing a book about the farce that Donald Trump is, et cetera, more than just a farce that Trump is. But he knew that the book would not be released before the election. And he thought it his responsibility, now that Donald Trump has been threatening to become president again, that it was his patriotic duty, his responsibility to let America know that electing this, it's a clear and present danger to run this guy that is nothing more than the facade of success. But beneath it, no success. And he asked one important question. Is a good businessman one who's run his company 6 times into the ground? Is that really a good businessman? Above and beyond that he's a liar, above and beyond that he's been declared a rapist by a judge, above and beyond that he is a misogynist, a rapist, a homophobic, all these characteristics, person who steals from charities, person who goes ahead and steals from people by faking a universe. I mean, one after the other. Is this the president we want? And he comes out and he says, I have a responsibility to tell the truth even before my book comes out, so that the American people would actually get away from the facade, the fallacy that somehow this guy is a good businessman. In fact, this guy's good at absolutely nothing other than marketing to the uninformed.
We spend a lot.
Absolutely. Other than marketing to the uninformed. All right, let's see who will get. Hey, Bruce Pollard is in the house. How you doing, brother Bruce? We have, let me go back up. I think I have a few things that I need to check out and see if I need to read it out loud. I know most of you have already seen it. Carl Cox says Trump can still win, has the backing of the 6 conservative judges of the U.S. Supreme Court and several states. But look, if they try to do what they did with Bush, where they just anointed him king, I think the country will go into revolt, and I don't think they can afford that. The country will go into revolt, and we would lose our complete stature in the country. All right, let's see what else we got here. Paul Fleming says, AP News, Christian nationalist leaders are telling followers that Vice President Kamala Harris is under the influence of a Jezebel spirit. That's right out of the Bible. Using a term deeply racist and misogynistic roots that is setting off alarm bells for religious and political scholars. Like I tell you, those people, those evangelical leaders are evil. There's nothing Christian about them. Let's see what else. British women still do not have the ERA. Still, you're correct. British also says, when taking my master's, a prof forced us to watch I guess you meant The Apprentice. I went to the dean and said she'll fail me if I don't watch it. She was reprimanded. Ha! I love that. She should be reprimanded. Patrick Magnus says the only fortune he has was a product of direction or tax money into his business while he was president. Over $1 billion in taxpayers' dollars. Exactly right. Exactly right. Paul from CNN. Donald Trump just confirmed he hasn't had a health exam and has no plan to do so. That should tell you everything you need to know. Just look at him. He looks like a bumbling buffoon the way he speaks. But what can I say? All right, let's say. Listen to Mike Cisak. He says something was found caught at Dominion machine flipping their votes. Oh my God, you guys live in fantasy land. My brother, come on, my brother, join the real world. Please, my brother, I love you. Join the real world. We're here waiting for you, brother. We mean that. Paul Fleming says, I love technology. I wish that I was smart enough to be an engineer. Okay, Paul, I've spoken to you many a times. I don't want to ever hear you say that again, brother. I wish I was smart enough to be an engineer. I have no doubt that you're smart enough to be an engineer. All our peeps in here are smart enough to be engineers. Okay? Let's not give engineers more credit than we deserve, all right? Astron Aerospace has introduced the H2 Starfire engine, a groundbreaking hydrogen-powered engine promising 3 times the efficiency of current market engines. The innovative technology marks a significant leap in hydrogen fuel technology, addressing efficiency costs and infrastructure challenges that have previously hindered the widespread adoption of hydrogen-powered vehicle. And guess what is the byproduct of burning hydrogen? You're going to love it. Water vapor. You burn hydrogen, you get water vapor as the byproduct. Technically speaking, you could get some hydrides, etc., but the basic result is going to be H2O. It's going to be H2 plus the O, and you burn it, all right? And the idea being is the way you make hydrogen green is that the way you could use electrolysis or other methods to use solar power to generate in effect, you use the solar power to create oxygen and hydrogen. And if we wanted to, we could actually have a closed, sort of a quasi-closed system, right? Where you keep the oxygen in your car, and they won't do that because of weight issues and all of that. But again, there are a lot of things that we can look at in the future. All right, what else have we got here? Let's see. Deb Dennis says DJT is property rich, cash poor, and heavily in debt. It's not property rich either. It doesn't have any assets. I think you're talking about Donald Trump. You're talking about Donald Trump himself, not his stock, because DJT is his stock as well. That's the 3 digits for his stock. And I don't know if he's rich. He owes a lot of money on all of his assets. So I don't know about that, my dear sister. All right, Bridge MCP, someone tell Eric Trump has 0. Oh my God. Anyway, folks, we're at the end of the show, and I want to ask all of you, could you all give me a good support for the weekend by those of you who have the wherewithal to please consider becoming paid subscribers of my newsletter, Egberto Off the Record. I do a lot of work on it, and like I mentioned several times before, we are still not break even, and we have to get there sometime before we mortgage completely the whole hell out of the house. So we need a lot of people to sign up for our newsletter, or to find some other way to support the program on a consistent basis if you can. And that is by going to politicsdoneright.com/support, or going to politicsdoneright.com. And that gives you all the different methods you can support our program. But to support the one that I'm trying to build right now is our newsletter backend. So if you would become a supporter of our newsletter, a coffee or so, politicsdoneright.com/newsletter, I would be I'll be happy about us making that transition. Bridge MCP, thank you for that super chat, sis. I would help anytime. Good shows. Good. Go to bed. Can't go to bed. Guess what today? Tonight, I'm going on a date with my wife. Ashley has a thing to do. So I have to, we're going to take Ashley and wait out there and go do something while we wait for her, and then pick her up, all that good stuff. So yeah. Thank you, Bridge MCP. Yeah, we'll do coffee, Eric. So I need to slap you around a bit. Anyway, folks, please consider becoming a part of the newsletter program. Eric, that's what you need to do. You spend so much time on this stuff. I want to see you subscribe to the newsletter. There it is. politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. Subscribe to it. Be an example. Subscribe to the newsletter. Even though we did, you did give KPFT, and I thank you for that. This is now Politics Done Right away from KPFT. I'm waiting for you to become a newsletter subscriber, brother. But anyway, folks, you can really help out by becoming a paid subscriber. Like I said, paid subscriber of our newsletter. Bridge MCP, thank you for always being there for this show. Bridge is one of our biggest supporters. Bruce Pollard, one of our biggest supporters. Michael Rudden, one of our biggest supporters. We have Peggy Lopez, big support. We got some Ray, brother Ray, big supporters. Our conservatives, big supporters. Magner, big supporter. I mean, so look, we got some great folks in here that like what we're doing here, and they are, believe it or not, they are making sure that a lot of what we do here gets out to the rest of Americans around. So please continue that good job. Anyway, got to get out of here. I'm going to put that link in there one more time. politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. Please become a paid subscriber so we can get the work done. Anyway, my name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right. Love you all. And I mean that. You too, CSAC. Even though you give me headaches, CSAC. One of these days when we're going to have the Politics Done Right posse out here in Houston. And I hope you come, because you'll be welcome. We'll go slap you around a little bit, but you'll be welcome. Anyway, my name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right. And you guys know how I end this baby. I am what? Out.
We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead. Number 1, subscribe to our channel. And number 2, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.